What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, we have to talk about some very, very alarming news. If it's real, and there's really no reason to doubt it's real, I guess it's like, is it as widespread as this individual makes it out to be? So what this story is Telltale laying off most of their staff. That is what this individual says, most of them. So this is a person that has actually worked there 2 different times. I take it that they worked there back before they went bankrupt, and then they have been working there on The Wolf Among Us too. And this is something that obviously needs to be brought up because they mentioned The Wolf Among Us as well. This is not good. We hear all of these game developers being laid off over these past couple months. I mean, it sucks pretty much every time. But when you have something that's a little bit closer to your heart, for me, with Wolf Among Us, yeah, that stings a little bit more. So this comes from an individual who says, this is a sore subject, but I feel it necessary to add the gaming layoff news. Telltale laid most of us off early September. The status of The Wolf Among Us 2, I can't say because it's under an NDA. Now I focus on what matters to me, my own game, and the following words: game industry, we need to unionize. I'm not going to go into the politics of that or make a statement whatsoever on that. In fact, we're going to kind of just skip that part. However, we can go a little bit deeper because he did actually tweet a few hours ago a little bit more. So he said that he signed an agreement not to cause any harm to Telltale's business as part of his severance package, which I imagine everybody did, but I'm legally allowed to speak on behalf of the people being laid off, and this statement of fact is sincerely not an attempt to cause harm or ruination to the company. So obviously it's not too much of a bad ill will towards Telltale, but he does say additional non-contract breaking detail. I originally rejoined Telltale because I've always wanted to work on The Wolf Among Us 2 as a fan of the original. Our team was very small, and I was genuinely excited for the game. Telltale has yet to publicize any of what has happened. This layoff came weeks after Telltale acquired a UK-based studio called Flavorworks. Again, I'm not saying this is an attempt to hurt the business. I'm saying the facts of how it felt to be laid off. It was a real bummer. I guess it was a silent precursor to the past 2 weeks. Okay, so quite a few things to discuss here. Number one, the first feeling I honestly have is almost anger because Telltale has done this before. Now, not fired everybody, although technically, what I would really want to know right now, more than anything, is actually what in God's name is happening over there. But I swear to God, if they blew this thing up on their own again, I would be extremely, extremely upset. Anger is the actual first emotion that would come to mind because they kind of did that bankruptcy thing to themselves. Now, obviously, I wasn't there, so I don't know fully, but you see how big they grew and how just they weren't doing what they should have been doing back in the day of making 4 or 5 games at a time, and many of them were failures, and it leads eventually to them going bankrupt. I don't know what happened this time around, and obviously this may not be a case of Telltale entirely falling apart. However, when it comes to what you're looking forward to them the most, it's probably Wolf Among Us. When it comes to The Expanse, that was primarily Deck 9, and Telltale published it, and obviously that didn't set the world on fire literally at all, right? I actually kind of believe that was a flop. Now, it depends on what their expectations for that game were, but I think everybody was expecting Wolf Among Us, and then honestly whatever would come after that, if there's any more IPs that they're working with or whatever. So I guess what scares me, or what I'm trying to circle around without actually saying, if you're firing the majority of the people that worked on Wolf Among Us, well, that means 2 things. Number one, that makes me very upset because what happens to the Wolf Among Us 2? Is that game coming out? I didn't think that would be a small team because of what I just said. Because when you think of Telltale right now, it is the Wolf Among Us. That's their thing. That is the only thing really from them that would make any kind of impact widespread, right? So if you fire most people that are working on it, then what are you even doing anymore? And that's a question I would absolutely like answered. And then, those 2 additional parts. Well, number one, they fired this guy or laid them off in September. So they've been operating for a few weeks now, is it? Without saying anything out loud. Now I feel like it's not going to be me that makes this big, but there's got to be somebody maybe Dom the Bomb on Twitter or whatever, right? I feel like this is going to have to kind of get out there and it's going to be widespread, and then Telltale is going to have to respond. And hopefully it's today, tomorrow. We need to figure out, I need to know if this game, Wolf Among Us, is coming out. But then I guess the odd part too, right, is what this guy says. So they bought a UK-based team. So they're expanding. So maybe Wolf Among Us isn't all that in trouble. Maybe they got rid of some of these people, or the majority, but they're moving Wolf Among Us to somewhere else. It doesn't make sense. I don't know why you would do something like that, but it could be happening. We really don't know, right? So yeah, we need answers. We need answers like right away. This is not the story. I'm like, maybe I sound mad or angry or sad in this video, and hopefully I do, because those are the emotions that I feel. This was like my second or third most anticipated game going into this year, and before it got delayed. Then going into next year, I would say Wolf Among Us is like top 5 games coming out that I'm looking forward to next year. Oh, for the love of God, please don't let anything have happened to this game. But it's hard to imagine it was unaffected because of all of the stuff that, this guy is saying. There's no way you can do this and expect that the game is going to be just fine. So Telltale, please respond, for the love of God. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.